Gotta get something started.
I'm just going to send you boys an image of a Michael Jackson statue that I've found that is fucking brilliant.
It's just human nature, all right?
Oh, he's off. Why is this the Michael Jackson pod? It better not be the Michael Jackson podcast.
Well, today we are reviewing Moonraker.
Moonwalker, not bloody Moonraker.
That's brilliant.
Jaws is in there. Michael Jackson comes along. He's like, "Ow, Jaws!" And then Joe Pesci's like, "Yeah, it's Joe Pesci."
Hello, you are listening to Off Radar. It's a movie podcast. I'm James Smith, a professional film and video editor.
I'm James Eatock, a freelance writer and illustrator specialising in 1980s cartoons.
And I'm Neil Brock, aka Nige, the man with two names, former film journalist and currently working in the games industry.
Each week, one of us picks a movie that all three of us either haven't seen in many years or in some cases haven't seen at all.
We each watch the chosen movie, return to the microphone and let you all know exactly what we thought of it.
I'd never really had any interest in watching it and I was proved absolutely right.
I think it's amazing. I really, really love this film.
The film's still a pile of steaming dog shit.
If you fancy joining in and suggesting a movie for us to watch, why not tweet us at Offradar Podcast
or email us on offradarpod@gmail.com.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, share, and by all means, leave a review.
For now, strap in, turn the volume up, and let's go Off Radar. Hello, and welcome back to Off Radar. I am James Smith, and I'm joined by James Eatock.
Hello.
And Neil Brock.
What's he going to do?
Hello.
What was that, a dinosaur? Or?
You tell me, Smith. You tell me.
It didn't really come through the Zoom properly, I don't think.
All I heard was like, oh.
Welcome back. Today, we call Neil Nige, by the way. I have to get that in. Today we are talking about a film that came out in 1993 called Jurassic Park. This was a film recommended by a friend of yours, Nige, Karl Stevens.
Hey, Carlos.
Friend of the pod, fan of the pod.
Big fan of the pod. Listens to it while he's driving in his car. Swerves to like run people over out of excitement. Like,
blimey.
I can't remember the name of that film.
Death Race 2000.
There you go, yeah. Frankenstein. Anyway.
So recommended by Carl. I guess a good place to start. Had we seen this? We must have seen this film before.
Yeah, it was. Saw it at the cinema. It was one of the first films I went to the cinema at without my parents being there. So I went with my my older brother Dave and a couple of mates from our village. I think like Steven Risbridger was there, and the cinema was almost entirely empty because it was a little bit after the film had actually come out. And I remember at one particularly tense bit, they both snuck up behind me and did a big like, and I shat my pants. I didn't literally shit my pants, but it was very, very close. It was touch and go for a moment, certainly. But yeah, so I don't remember much about the film. Remember almost pooing my pants. So
it's stories like that you can tell the grandkids.
Yeah, you must have only been 10 as well watching this.
Yeah,
film.
I was really young, and again,
scary.
It was like it seems weird because obviously it was a PG, and my brother wasn't that much older than me, but I don't know, it definitely happened. Like, you heard it here first. It's not a lie, honestly.
He snuck in. Eatock, have you? I take it you'd seen this back in the day?
Not back in the day. So my earliest memories of Jurassic Park was going into school after the summer break, so September of 93. And I'm sitting at my desk next to my, shared desks. I'm sat next to my friend Ahmed, and he's drawing like a dinosaur on his folder, or the exercise book. In the new term, you get your new exercise books. We were all like drawing back then, and he would draw, and he was drawing a dinosaur. I was like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Jurassic Park." I was like, "What?" Because I just wasn't a movie buff back then. And he was talking about it. He was like, "Yeah, it's amazing, Steven Spielberg." I knew who Spielberg was. And he's like, "Yeah, it's dinosaurs, it's computer graphics." And at that point, I'm thinking, oh, computer graphics, because we were still a year out from, believe it or not, when The Mask came out, that wowed us. 'Cause we were like, oh my God, like The Mask CGI, as well as Jurassic Park, was phenomenal for its time. But you just thought back then, like, oh, really? Okay, computer-generated dinosaurs, that should be interesting. Because, a year or two prior, we'd just seen the Ninja Turtles movie with animatronics, little masks and stuff. So,
plus, everyone knew real dinosaurs were cartoon, like in The Land Before Time. So
that's a very good point. Yeah, Land Before Time and all that. And, I just remember thinking, okay, that's interesting. The first Jurassic Park movie I saw was, I don't know when it came out, so you'd have to tell me the date, was Jurassic Park 2. I saw that at the cinema. I think that's the one where the girl uses like her gymnastic skills to fight a velociraptor. And I remember thinking, this film is a big pile of rubbish. And then I went back and watched the original Jurassic Park and formed an opinion.
Fair enough. Yeah,
The Lost World of James Eatock.
The Lost World came out in 1997.
That would have been around about the time like me and my friends started really going to the cinema a lot. So I guess that was one of those where it's like, oh, what should we go and see? Oh, Jurassic Park 2. And I just remember thinking, this, like, great visuals and stuff, but this is pants.
Oh, fair enough.
Spoiler for Jurassic Park 2 review.
Oh, man. Funnily enough, I saw The Lost World at the cinema as well. I did not see the first one at the cinema, but I did watch it in the right order. And I imagine I watched it on VHS with my family. I can't really remember watching it with friends, but yeah, it was definitely around that time when Spielberg was peak Spielberg, as you probably heard about on our previous episode, the Steven Spielberg episode.
I reckon, like Jurassic Park as well, I guarantee the first time it was shown on TV, it was like a Christmas movie. Like, obviously it was released in 93, so it used to take years before films came on terrestrial TV. I bet it was on like BBC or ITV one Christmas for the first time, probably by about 1997. I imagine a lot of people saw it for the first time then.
And then went and saw, obviously, the sequels, which, that one, and Jurassic Park 3 as well. And then obviously it spawned a whole, new Jurassic World franchise that's come off the back of it.
Do you know, those Jurassic World movies, I can't, I feel like I saw the first one, I just don't, I don't know if I did or not. That's how kind of disconnected I am from the franchise.
They're all a bit pants.
They're all a bit pants. I think the first one, because it had been so
made a lot of money.
Yeah, it did really well. And it
Transformers
was,
numbers we're talking.
It was kind of like, we haven't seen this for 30 years. This is fun. But now they've just, exactly wheeled it back out every couple of years. Jurassic Park. So, directed by Steven Spielberg, obviously based on the book by Michael Crichton, and written by Michael Crichton and David Co-op. We've definitely spoke about him before, and I feel like every time we do, I'm like, oh yeah, recognise that name.
He runs a big branch of
You've definitely done that joke before as well.
You lucky thing. David Co-op, he wrote Indiana Jones and Crystal Skull, but he did write Carlito's Way, Mission Impossible. I think that's where we probably discussed him. But he also wrote Spider-Man, other Spielberg films like War of the Worlds, and did Ghost Town as well, which was that strange Ricky Gervais film from about 15 years ago.
And stars Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, and Richard Attenborough as well.
Dickie Attenborough.
Big Dick.
Do you know who I forgot was in this? It took me completely by surprise.
I know who you're going to say. Yeah, same.
I was watching, I was like, Sam Jackson? But obviously
I thought it was going to be like a little cameo when he pops up, and then actually he's in it quite a lot.
He's in it quite a bit, and this was obviously, I'm guessing, within 12. I mean, it was definitely within 12 months of me and my friends going to see Pulp Fiction at the cinema. So obviously these films must have come out very close together. But it's funny how, you watch this and it's like, oh, it's Samuel L. Jackson. And then within a year, it's Samuel L. Jackson.
The thing with this film, obviously it was shot, but then it took a hell of a long time for them to put it together with all the special effects. So I imagine Pulp Fiction, it was a case of you shoot it and you edit it and get out the door. So
it could have been that he filmed this, then he filmed Loaded Weapon,
which I also love, to be fair. Him and Emilio Estevez ripping off Lethal Weapon.
And we asked you to give us a little brief synopsis of Jurassic Park, Nige.
Once upon a time in a land... No, it's not really like that.
In a land before time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, kind of. Well, it's a fictional island off the coast of Costa Rica, and there's a bunch of people wandering around doing silly things with big boxes, and one of them gets scoffed. And you're thinking, what's going on here? Well, it turns out that none other than John Hammond, a.k.a. Dickie Attenborough, is trying to open a theme park for dinosaurs. What a crazy thing. But those bloody lawyers, they're always like, oh, I've got to push a pencil and do all these things. They're trying to, his investors are just like, it's a bit ropey having dinosaurs wandering the earth. Maybe we should get this checked over. So what he does, he gets a bunch of people to come along and check it out. So a couple of scientists, a paleontologist, a paleobotanist, and also a, what is known as a chaotician, player Ian Malcolm, aka Jeff Goldblum. Plus, of course, the offensive lawyer to come on down. And while you're doing that, why not invite the grandkids along to check it out? Because, dinosaurs for kids. And what they do is come to this island and see just how marvellous bloody dinosaurs are. However, there's a rather naughty coder man who's basically trying to sell off the insider secrets and make some money out of it. Well, in doing so, he kind of sabotages the park just as like a big hurricane's about to hit. And goodness gracious, all the electric fences that keep T-Rex and Velociraptors and all those wonderful creatures in their little pens goes down and chaos ensues.
Welcome to Jurassic Park. We've made living biological attractions so astounding that they'll capture the imagination of the entire planet.
The most phenomenal discovery of our time
How'd you do this?
becomes the greatest adventure of all time.
Can I touch it?
Sure.
I want to give a shout out because obviously, Wayne Knight as the baddie in this.
Yes.
It's always nice to see. And this was obviously at the height of, I'm guessing, 93, kind of Seinfeld was kind of reaching its peak at this point. So getting him in the movie is probably quite it's probably quite an easy choice for them. I doubt he had to, do much of an audition because the role he plays.
It's funny you say that.
We can't get there. We can't get there.
Early trivia, like Spielberg doesn't really like doing any auditions. He only really hires actors based on him seeing them in other things. So I think there's a strong possibility that role was given to him based on no audition. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Although I think he does for younger actors, for children and stuff. I know that for basically his grandchild, the girl in the film, she got hired because her scream was so terrifying when Spielberg was watching back at the audition tapes. The wife came in the room and was like, is everything okay? And that was basically got her the part. So
wow.
You
So
can scream,
annoying, that
you're
girl.
in. She's rather annoying, yes.
I was trying to find out, if she went on to anything else, and not really.
She did. She went on to be annoying.
Yes, in this film. Yeah, and I guess it's interesting the way this film starts. Obviously, we start in like this barren desert, and it's so kind of lifeless. And obviously, they're archaeologists looking for bones and stuff. And it's just such a contrast to what comes when Richard Attenborough arrives in white, like this ethereal, godlike character, which obviously he is because he's playing God, to kind of bring these dinosaurs back.
Very nice.
And he kind of we when we go to Jurassic Park, it's the complete opposite to where we start in the film. It's all lush and green and very utopian. So the landscape and that kind of scene that Spielberg sets up is clever right from the off.
You'll have to get used to Dr. Malcolm. He suffers from a deplorable excess of personality, especially for a mathematician.
Chaotician, actually. John doesn't subscribe to chaos, particularly what it has to say about his little...
I do like his kind of introduction into it. He's just straight in, and he's so spry as well. It's like we all love Dickie Attenborough, and he jumps on the counter and he's like sitting there.
He's got
almost
this
like
slightly odd Scottish accent.
Yeah, his accent. I couldn't quite pinpoint what he was doing in it, but I like his. He's got a bit of a Sean Connery vibe in this film. Yeah, I get that. But what I like about his personality trait in it is, and I think he's, like I say, he jumps up on the counter, which isn't like something that an adult would do, but there's like a childlike sensibility to his whole performance, and I think that comes with the like naivety of him going, we brought back dinosaurs, isn't this great, without thinking of every single problem that could arise.
And that's definitely kind of made more. It happens further along in the film, when they're in the cinema watching the animation, and it's all very childlike. It's like basically explaining it to, like a 10-year-old.
DNA strand, like me, is a blueprint for building a living thing. And sometimes animals that went extinct millions of years ago, like dinosaurs, left their blueprints behind for us to find.
It was also a really clever piece of filmmaking by Spielberg, because obviously, as we mentioned at the start, this is a Michael Crichton novel, and one that I think they paid £2 million for the rights, $2 million, I should say, for the rights very, very early on, because everyone knew this is like the perfect book to make into a film. But the thing about the film was a lot of it was quite dense, and the most dense aspect was the explanation about how they did the DNA stuff. And basically Spielberg puts it in a 30-second minute cartoon.
Yeah.
What was sort of a huge chunk of that novel to try and make it make sense. And it's quite a memorable, sort of cheeky little bit as well. And it's interesting, they're almost on like this fairground ride going around, and then they sort of see the lab where these dinosaurs are being crafted, and sort of break the ride, hop off, and go and have a look. Really,
I do like that. When he's like, "You can't do that," it's like, because they'll get off, and because they're their core, they want to see how this is done, and that's where like the first kind of little moments of kind of present themselves, where they start talking about, oh no, we breed all these animals, all these creatures to be female. And I love Goldblum in the whole thing. He's like, I suppose he is cynical, but the whole time he's just cautious. And he says,
life finds a way.
I love the explanation when they find out how the animals are able to reproduce later in the film. I was like, oh, that's pretty good, because it's a callback to something we see during the presentation, which, as Nige said, is kind of genius filmmaking, because you put that little public information film in, and anybody in the audience, in the cinema audience, us as an audience, were like, oh, okay, so that's how it's done, rather than it's magic, or something like that.
And you mentioned Jeff Goldblum there, and his character. Well, in fact, let's have a quick little chat about the character. So obviously Sam Neill is quite a straight-laced, archaeologist. He's the
and a technophobe as well. You'll find, like, even when he's trying to put on a seatbelt, he struggles to do it. Like, everything
the very memorable.
I love the way he ties it up as well. Just ties it into a knot.
And then poor old Laura Dern's just left with two wrong ends as well, which he's just like, oh well.
The very memorable helicopter scene. Yeah, exactly, where they enter the island. He's such a kind of perfectionist in his like science and his beliefs, and then you've got obviously Laura Dern, and their relationship's slightly odd between Sam Neill and Laura Dern, because they're not like together, but
I think they are.
They are, but it's
so it's just like,
Goldblum asks, doesn't he? Goldblum says something like, you together, like, and does he give like an answer, like a proper answer? I feel like it's a bit kind of ambiguous.
Quite vague. Yeah.
Well, I think that's one of the things about Sam Neill's character, is he's someone who doesn't really show emotion. So you kind of see it with his relationship with Laura Dern, the fact with the children, he's like kind of dismissive. It's just like annoying children. But then on the flip side, as you mentioned, Smith, like his love for dinosaurs. One of the sort of the greatest scenes of this, and one that I remember watching when I was a kid, is when they sort of first go into the park when they first get there, and Laura Dern says, "Oh my goodness, like this piece of like foliage should be extinct," and sort of he turns and sees the dinosaurs and kind of lifts up his sunglasses. But the way he reacts to that, the way he reacts to that, and then when he gets out as well, like his knees buckle, and for him to have probably been looking at a green screen or something very similar to sort of portray that much emotion that kind of makes you feel like you're there with them, I think that's a truly outstanding piece of acting, and especially for someone like Sam Neill, whereby it's not like for kind of like the early 90s, or for people who weren't around in those days, it's not like Sam Neill was like a Brad Pitt or a George Clooney. He wasn't really a household name. He'd done a few interesting films, but nothing that would make you think, oh, he's going to lead this huge sort of blockbuster type film. So it's really interesting casting.
No, that emotion he shows is one of the most captivating bits of the movie. I think it's when you look at scenes from this film that are always shown in like trailer clips or not trailer clips, but like clips from the movie, and that is one of the shots they show where he kind of stands up from the Jeep and takes his glasses off or sunglasses off, and it's just like, oh my God, you see that kind of that disbelief. And I love the fact they don't show the reveal. Laura Dern's looking at that piece of foliage, and he puts his hand on her head and rotates her head, and then
that's really nice.
And then another thing about that's a great piece of casting as well. One thing I love about Laura Dern is she has one of the most crazily and at times scary expressive faces. She can do like a real shock. If you go and look at her work with David Lynch, she does some real terrifying like screams and shocks and faces and stuff like that. And in this, she's so perfectly cast, and they both react. And then the camera, not necessarily goes around, but then we see what they're looking at. And these giant, I guess, Brontosaurus or Brachiosaurus. So, I used to be a dinosaur nut when I was a kid. So you see these, and it's just like, and then you get obviously one of the best lines of the movie, which is the Jeff Goldblum, "He did it. Son of a bitch did it." It's just such a great little moment. Because again, I love how well defined the characters are. I mean, well, that goes part and parcel of Spielberg movies,
Because then you get Jeff Goldblum, who is the polar opposite to Sam Neill. So he's in a leather jacket and wears black, and he's very cool, and he's got his chest out and kind of like making passes at Laura Dern. He's so different to Sam Neill, but also has this kind of like natural relationship with people, which Sam Neill doesn't. And like you said, Sam Neill's kind of journey on this is very much with the kids and with Laura Dern, but obviously with himself, and kind of like as much as he learns about dinosaurs, he learns more about himself, which is obviously a bit of a classic kind of Spielberg trait, that we're kind of seeing these kids bring out the best in him.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, again, like pretty inspired casting by Spielberg. Like Etok mentioned the fact Laura Dern was probably more famous for her Lynch movies. So Wild at Heart, for instance, is absolutely bonkers, and that was only a couple of years before. And obviously Blue Velvet as well earlier on. And then you've got Jeff Goldblum, someone who'd been in sort of an odds and sods type films. Like he did like The Tall Man with Richard Curtis.
That's right.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
The Fly,
which we've got coming up on a future episode. Plug.
But yeah, it's a really, really interesting dynamic. And again, you kind of go back and watch this film and you realise, there's not that many people in this film in terms of cast. Like it's quite a close-knit bunch of people that first come in. And you've got a couple of annoying kids. There's like the really cool sort of what's the almost like the park ranger type guy who has some classic
the hunter,
like Steve Irwin, isn't he? He's
kind of that's kind of thing. And then it's just how they pull it together, and you don't sort of get throwaway characters, like two characters the same. Everyone's got a purpose, and it's really quite tight. There's not wasted scenes, there's not really wasted dialogue. Everything's got a purpose, but it never feels like it's the sort of movie on rails that's just ploughing you forward. Everything seems to make sense.
We have a T-Rex.
Oh. Put your head between your knees.
Dr. Grant, my dear Dr. Sattler, welcome to Jurassic Park.
The suspense and the build in this film, when you think about Jurassic Park, you obviously immediately think about the dinosaurs, but actually a lot of the suspense and tension is not always with the dinosaurs in. So for instance, there's a scene when they're like the kind of car thing is up in the tree and they're trying to get down the tree, and the car truck is like falling down. And actually for me, like that was one of the most tense kind of moments in the film without the dinosaurs. And obviously the suspense is built through the scenes with the dinosaurs, but it's often before the dinosaurs are in the scene, if that makes sense.
Same with the opening scene when they're trying to unload the dinosaur. You don't even know what it is at that point, and it grabs hold of like one of the workers, and that ranger guy's like, shoot her, shoot her. But you never actually see what it is. Again, it's that suspense, it's that terror without revealing it. And even with the T-Rex later on, you hear it long before you see it. And that sound is iconic.
I love the kind of drama as well when they have that dinner scene before we get to see all the drama that does unfold. And Dickie Attenborough, I'm going to keep calling him that. He's almost like looking for support. He's like, well, surely this person's going to back me and this person. And it starts with Jeff Goldblum kind of saying like, you can't be playing God here kind of thing. And then it goes to Laura Dern, who's like, she voices her. They're all voicing their concerns. And he thinks Sam Neill's going to support him. And even Sam Neill, who loves, all these people love dinosaurs, but they're just like the reality of what you're doing here is is fraught with, great danger, and it could go awry. But it's got, again, one of my favorite lines is Jeff Goldblum when he's like, they're all having, they're talking, or Dickie Attenborough's talking, I think, as is the lawyer. And Jeff Goldblum just says like, the lack of humility before nature that's being displayed here staggers me. But he delivers it in that Jeff Goldblum way. Yeah. And that's such a great line, because it's, there's they've got the dinosaurs. It's like, we've recreated dinosaurs, but there's no humility to it. It's just like, oh, no, we've recreated dinosaurs. We control them. And it's like, wait, you're trying to control a force of nature. And then there's, I think in the same scene, maybe Sam Neill has a fucking killer line where he says, and it kind of, what I love about the line is, unfortunately, to a degree, it sets up the franchise for the next, what we're getting now with all these movies, the Jurassic Park, all these Jurassic World movies that keep coming out. Sam Neill says, two species, I'm paraphrasing, he says like, two species separated by 65 million years of evolution, thrown back into the mix together. What can we expect? His line in that movie, in Jurassic Park, is perfect, because it's like, it's foreshadowing massively. But unfortunately, that line now transcends into all these Jurassic World movies, where it's like humans and dinosaurs living together, working together, team ups, laser guns on dinosaurs' heads. I know I'm exaggerating, but that's the way those movies film now. No, I was going to say, whereas this, one of the strengths of this movie is, by itself, it's a strange word to use when you talk about dinosaurs, but it's an incredibly well-grounded movie. It takes itself very seriously in the premise. It doesn't kind of wink at the camera and go, hey, dinosaurs, we know they're not real, it's all computers. And that's one thing we should talk about as well, like fucking the technology, the CGI, like...
Well, it's not all CGI, like,
I know,
the T-Rex was animatronic.
There are some
running.
scenes where you think, it looks like a bloke in dinosaur slippers, just... those slippers you get at Christmas. But
that'd be amazing.
Or in the puddle in the mud.
Yeah, but you're right, the technology, and especially for its time, it was groundbreaking. It was, incredible. Like, we'd never seen anything that like this, and I'm really jealous that you saw it at the cinema, Nige, because imagine seeing this for the first time at that point. And obviously, the story is so strong, and like we say, because of that tension that is built, that when the dinosaurs do come into the scene, they're not in it loads, but when they're in it, you're just like, wow, it's like breathtaking. I mean, one of the scenes, when he just sees the dinosaurs like fleeing across the grass.
That's a great set.
I mean, actually, I don't know if you've ever seen that Fenton clip of the dog. Fenton, Jesus Christ! Well, anyway, Google that, and then Google Jurassic Park Fenton, because there's done.
Have they done?
Yeah, and
did they do that?
I can't watch Jurassic Park without thinking of Fenton, Jesus Park, because there's like a bloke going Fenton, Jesus Christ, as the dinosaurs are running across the field.
Oh, that's
going to say, if you're listening to this and have no idea what they're on about, I'm in that boat, so I will have to go.
Have you not seen this? Oh, okay. It's a viral video of a dog chasing deers in Richmond Park.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Benton! Oh, Jesus Christ!
The scene, the T-Rex scene, is one of the most iconic Jurassic Park scenes. So with the
what I love though, before we get to the that scene, is the fact they're like all like zooey theme parks. They go for it for ages and they just don't see anything. Yeah, like that classic thing when you're like, oh, we're going past this sort of cage or whatever, and there's just nothing there. Yeah. And it's just like, safari style. I just love the fact they kind of put that in, because that would potentially be the reality of something like this. But yeah, when the T-Rex does show up, as you say.
Yeah, and it's even before that, it's with so obviously, the electric has now gone off, we should say. It's raining.
It's the drama.
Yeah, exactly.
The vehicle stops.
Then the girl who's like, it's like, okay, what I'm going to do with the T-Rex comes, I'm going to shine a light in its face and wave it about. And as the audience, you're like, what the fuck are you doing, you stupid bitch? It's like,
Daisy Smith.
She's like 12.
Yeah, I know, but even everyone's like, turn the light out. And the little boy that's younger than her brother, it's just like, turn the light out, what are you doing? And then the T-Rex like, crashes into the top of the truck.
You have the water reverberating.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've got to go back a little bit. Yeah,
which was like an incredible looking thing, but they really struggled to actually do that when they were doing like the special effects and trying to sort it out. And the only way they could get it to actually sort of go in that way was they had to put like guitar strings underneath the dash, and they'd pull on the guitar strings, and that would make the water go the way it did.
Wow.
And it took them ages to figure that out. Like, it was almost harder to do that than anything else in that film. But it's, again, and I think that got ripped off in loads of other films since, in terms of like silly comedies and stuff like that, where it's like, whoa.
Turn it off! I'm sorry! I didn't know!
It's one of those scenes in a movie where it's almost like it transcends the movie. It becomes a part of like cinema lore, filmmaking lore. It's like, oh yeah, that scene where the T-Rex turns up, because it's not just up until that point. Dare I say, don't get me wrong, like a film like the 1970s King Kong, they built up a lot of. I think there's a good half hour to 45 minutes to an hour maybe where you don't see King Kong, and then when you do, it's like, oh my god. This felt like a new version of that, where we'd seen we'd seen the Brontosaurus, Brachiosaurus, whatever. I think we'd even seen a Triceratops, but we hadn't seen like the T-Rex. And in the 80s, as a kid growing up, T-Rex was like the dinosaur. He was like Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's like the king of all dinosaurs. So you're waiting for it to turn up, and it's not just. They could, in the hands of maybe a lesser writer, lesser filmmaker, they would have, they broke down, and then the dinosaur just goes, it comes out, like, here I am, I'm T-Rex. But instead, it's that.
Is that paraphrasing again, E-Talk?
I'm a T-Rex. I'm a T-Rex, here I come, I'm going to eat you now. It's the tension built up around it. It's the atmosphere. It's dark. And they probably said it at night for two reasons. One, for tension and mood, but also probably because they weren't 100% confident maybe of the CGI. Although that said, there's plenty of day scenes where you see the dinosaurs moving.
Well, yeah, but Spielberg knew after making Jaws that you can't always sort of rely on the animatronics or the...
And I mean, generally they do look better in the night scenes, don't they? Like some of the CGI you can tell looks a little bit dated, as it would. Like when the...
I don't know, man. Like, I'll be honest with you. I watched this and I was kind of looking for it to be dated, but I didn't get much. Maybe the only time was when there was composition where they were next to the dinosaurs, as in running through them.
Or the bit in the tree where he like strokes
stands up,
like petting like a horse. Yeah,
I know what you mean. When he strokes the horse.
He strokes the horse dinosaur.
What film is Smith watching? But that T-Rex scene is great. You got the drama, and it's one of those things where all the components in the scene come together. So it's like, well, it's a T-Rex. He's going to try and eat them. And it's like, oh no, suddenly now the Jeeps are becoming problematic because the Jeeps have turned over. The kids are sinking into the mud, so now the rain and the mud is playing a part. And of course we get the lawyer man who you knew was going to die at the start.
Absolutely.
This film's about dinosaurs. There's a lawyer. How's he going to die? He's going to be sat on the toilet on the John,
that was a classic scene when I was a kid. Like everyone used to talk about that scene.
Absolutely.
Just like,
he's so vulnerable. Yeah, exactly. And
it's one of the actual
and you don't see many deaths in this, but that's exactly. If in fact you might only see maybe 2.
No, actually there's 5, which is the same as Jaws. So obviously there's the guy at the start, there's the lawyer, of course, there's our hunter man, there's Samuel L's arm, and then there's Mr. Seinfeld. And it's most of those as well are kind of, you can see there's like bad elements to them, like everyone hates a lawyer, fine. You've got Samuel L. Jackson's characters, chain smoker, don't like chain smokers. You've got hacker man. You've got like a hunter obviously kills animals, and you've just got the poor guy at the start who I don't know. This is a stretch, but maybe because he's like an immigrant and the way America looks at people.
I feel like maybe because if you want to look at him as a bad person, it's like he's imprisoning a creature. He's part of the situation where they've imprisoned this creature, that should be let free to eat everybody.
Yeah, and one thing I just wanted to pick up, when you talked about like the rain and all of that, like there is this overall message of man versus nature, and obviously man versus nature in the sense of the dinosaurs, but also it does feel like nature is always on the dinosaurs' side in this film. So when you do get the weather turning against them, and then like the dinosaurs breaking free and stuff like that. So Spielberg uses that really well, and obviously it's something you could probably make parallels to in life, like zoos and I don't know what else, but
it's tricky. Like I think the problem you run into where you want to do the captured animals, yes, to a degree, like when you see, it's funny, understandably the good dinosaurs are the vegetarians, herbivores are allowed to run free and roam free, whereas your velociraptors, which are obviously the highest of the high apparently in terms of ferocity, they're kind of really caged in, whereas the T-Rex is caged fences. In. Yeah, and they're
fed with chained up animals rather than like being able to hunt. So actually, all of their instinct is being suppressed, and we've
Sam
all got,
Neill comments on, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We've all got cats. Cats like to go and like catch a mouse. It's that instinct, and that's what they're depriving these animals of. They're just giving them a goat on a bit of string or whatever.
A goat on a bit of string. I love that.
The goat's a bit of a cult character as well. Like he's fine. They just leave him alone. It's just like, the goat's wandering around. He's all right. Yeah. People are screwed.
And then there's the cow as well, isn't there?
The cow doesn't do very well. No. I'll be honest.
Cow fares very badly. But yeah, I want to say something about the Velociraptors. What I love about the Velociraptors is this movie, I would argue, I had never heard of Velociraptors before. This movie turned them into stars, if you know what I mean. It literally, after this movie, I would say that Velociraptors became more famous than T-Rex. And again, they kind of transcended the film itself. It's, you think of Jurassic Park, I think of Velociraptors almost more so than I even do with the T-Rex scenes. It's just like, Velociraptors, and that scene where they're stalking the kids as well is like, again, another iconic scene.
It's so good. Yeah. Is that's the indoor, the kind of like kitchen area or whatever it is?
Exactly. And they make a comment about, it'll be dangerous. They can kind of turn the handles type thing, and they manage to sort of make their way in.
Yeah.
And that's that again, that tension that Spielberg uses there, like the kids keep running and hiding, and you're seeing like the feet, and you're seeing them creep around. And actually I probably mentioned this in the Spielberg episode, but in War of the Worlds they do a very, very similar thing when he's downstairs with Tim Robbins.
Yeah, that scene.
Which is really similar to Jurassic Park, but
very similar. Yeah.
But that scene's so good. Like it's that
very
tension.
Tense, isn't
it? It is,
yeah.
And sometimes I feel like for me, like those are my favourite scenes in this film. Is that massive achievement of creating this tension in what could be a really almost unbelievable film in many cases.
It's interesting you saying about like Velociraptors almost becoming more famous, which I definitely agree with. Spielberg was always convinced that the T-Rex had to be the star, and that's kind of the way the film ends. Obviously, it's that big set piece with the T-Rex and the way the banner sort of drops down as well. It's a really beautiful shot, and I think they just did such a fantastic job with, as said, like just the way the animals moved, and the memorable one as well that gets old Seinfeld's mate when it's sort of scales come out and it spits in his face, and all those moments with the dinosaurs. I mean, the dinosaurs aren't on screen for that long. If you looked at the running time in the film compared how long they're on, it's not that high, and I think it's credit to the team that worked on it. I mean, they won an Oscar for best visual effects. Stan Winston was involved, who we know has been involved in things like Terminator 2, did like Predator, Edward Scissorhands, did sort of a stupid amount of films. I think he's won numerous Oscars for what he's done in the past. And again, even Avatar, I think, in modern times. But just having a brilliant team because they knew it was going to be such an important part of this film. And again, it's such a memorable part.
Well, it's crazy. Like when you look, I remember seeing a behind the scenes thing of Jurassic Park, and the technology they had at the time compared to now, night and day. It's just ridiculous, like how far we've come with regards to technology. But it's what they were doing and how much time and how much computer power they had to put in to bring these scenes to life. And it's phenomenal when you look back. It really is phenomenal because, up until that point, computer, don't get me wrong, computer graphics, computer generated animation and stuff imagery was on the rise. Obviously, you'd had Industrial Light and Magic, obviously, are the kind of kings of that back in the day. But it really is a phenomenal example of, all the right elements coming together, all the right talents. And I think what Nigel said about, dinosaurs not appearing in the movie as much as you'd think.
Yeah.
That's obviously kind of plays into the Jaws factor. Let's not show the shark the whole time. And I think regardless of the animatronic issues with that film, I think that's still a choice he made, as in, if you show it every 5 seconds, you kind of kill it. You kill the allure, the mysticism.
Yeah,
which a lot of the newer ones do.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's just like dinosaur. It
just becomes a big, massive blockbuster. Well, the use of silhouettes in this. So you're not seeing the dinosaur, but you might see like a kind of silhouette behind a kind of backlit thing, which obviously Spielberg does a lot. But yeah, he uses that so well. But then also the other thing which Nige mentioned really briefly near the beginning, which we should get to though, is John Williams and the music.
It's just unforgettable.
It really is unforgettable.
As soon as it starts, you're just like, bang, you just think Jurassic Park, you think the big gate swinging open, you think...
And it's warm. It's quite weird because it's a warm soundtrack. John Williams kind of lends himself to kind of building a story through his music, and we see it most in Spielberg's films, to be honest. But especially in this film, it feels like quite like fluffy and nostalgic, and like that. Those like lovely bars that play, you instantly know you're going into Jurassic Park.
He's creating an air of magic around it and like wonderment. There you go. That's what he's doing. He's trying to create like, I mean, obviously the filmmaking's doing a fine job of showing that, but especially with the scenes when we first see the Brontosaurus kind of thing, it's that music kind of uplifts and kind of draws you in, and you feel like you become a part of the scene. It's not like, I don't know, in the hands of other composers, maybe it would have been like...
Well, imagine Hans Zimmer.
Driving through Jurassic Park, right, driving through Jurassic Park. It's like, no, you kind of, you want it to be, like, I'm going to use the word again, but you want it to be that kind of wonderful sense of magic and, almost like a childlike fancy. And I think that, we all, as kids, probably, I'm assuming, loved dinosaurs. I know I did. And it's that thing of, we're about to bring all your kind of childhood fantasies of dinosaurs to life. But it's never overstated. It's not like in your face music. It's kind of, it just hangs in there enough that it doesn't dominate, but it's there enough that it's there. Like an old familiar friend putting his hand around your shoulder and being like, hey, we had some adventures, didn't we?
And then they've got a velociraptor claw and they gouge your eye out.
Exactly.
Well, there's times where, like the Jurassic, the T-Rex scene, there's no music. It's the big thuds of the T-Rex.
Well, like the rain is almost like the soundtrack in there. It's like,
it's all sound.
Well, it won 3 Oscars and 2 of them were for sound. So best sound effects editing and best sound. The other one, as I mentioned earlier, was for best visual effects. So like you said, it really sets the scene. And it was interesting there how Etok was saying, like, dinosaurs, like, kids love dinosaurs. Well, when this film first came up and like the bidding rights and everyone was trying to get the book and everything else, someone who was really interested in directing this was actually James Cameron. But he realised that Spielberg was the better choice for this, because he'd have done something that was a lot more akin to, say, Aliens, where there's a lot more adults versus dinosaur violence. Probably more of what we've seen in the more recent Jurassic Park films. He realised that Spielberg married those two things, which he does so much in his films, of like that childhood wonderment with something with that sort of exciting adventure, but at the same time sneaking in a PG because he's Steven Spielberg. So was it a PG or was it a 12?
It was a PG. It was a PG, but it felt like it could easily, like 3 years later when they bring the 12. I don't know when the 12 came out.
No, the 12 came out in 1989 because Batman was the first
was it?
one.
Okay, fine. But yeah. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, which is so clever in this film, is the merchandise, because obviously merchandising. Like they're like playing on it all the way through the film, like, because obviously they're selling Jurassic Park. They've got like the t-shirt, and they've got on the truck thing they've got this thing. And now obviously after this film came out, I imagine the merch we've done incredibly well, t-shirts and designs and posters, and that design of Jurassic Park. I mean, the logo. What an amazing logo for this film.
It's so simple, but it again, it's one of those almost like it transcends the movie. You're just like, I can recognize that logo, that font, that design anywhere. Even when you see someone do a parody of it or pay homage to it, it's just like, I know it straight away.
Whereas if you look up, I don't know, like, I'm just going to look it up before I say this.
Jurassic World. I'm guessing it's loads of bevel on it, loads of shininess.
It is, loads of shine, loads of kind of like grey and whites and silvers.
Overly textured.
Yeah, exactly. And they've done that more and more as the kind of franchise has gone on, made it gold, and whereas with the first one it's so simple.
Because the funny thing is, when you think about it, is the film's title is the gimmick of Dickie Attenborough's Park. It's I'm trying to think what would be a good comparison if there was like a film where you take an element out of that and that becomes the title of the film. This could have been called When Dinosaurs Attack, or A Park Uncovered, or something, but they literally use the claws. God. But they literally use the branding of the park as the movie title, and it's kind of genius. I mean, obviously Crichton had done that with the book, but still, it's it's very like using the park logo as the film logo.
There's those plays on it, like, and throughout the whole film. On the book, I've never read it. Have you guys read the book? What do you think of the book?
No, I've never read it. It's interesting because I mentioned about sort of James Cameron would have made it a darker film. Old Seinfeld guy in the book gets decapitated. Now,
so it's a lot darker.
It's not the sort of film, that you could really have decapitation in necessarily. And I think John Hammond's character is a bit more kind of sinister as well, I would say. Like the way they kind of wrote him and presented him, is they were trying to almost look like a sort of Walt Disney-esque type character rather than anything sort of too heinous. But I've never read it. I've not read many Crichton books. I'd be interested to check it out. But people sort of criticised him and sort of said, well, why is Jurassic kind of in the title when the dinosaurs were from like the Cretaceous era? And he was just like, it never occurred to me. It was just the best looking design. And that's kind of why they did it. So
fair enough. We need your help. We are looking to grow Off Radar and release more and more high quality content. Please give us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your pod. And why not share with your friends and loved ones?
Help me help you.
Have you got any more trivia, Nige, while we're here?
Oh man, I've got trivia.
I bet you have.
Oh god, I was going to say for this movie.
Give us loads of trivia.
Well, we spoke about Indy previously, and obviously that's a Spielberg film, and how like so many people got interested in archaeology based on that film. Well, the movie and the book for this generated so much interest in dinosaurs that the study of paleontology experienced a record increase in students just as a result of this. So there you go. So that was one of the things Spielberg did to try and educate the world. But Spielberg as well has obviously had a huge history with film. And he actually worked at Universal Studios for a while when he was sort of a bit younger. And one time during his spell working there, he was asked to just give a tour to like a random special guest who had just sold the film rights of one of his books to the studio, and it turned out he gave a tour of Universal Studios to Michael Crichton. So without either really knowing who each other were. So there you go. One of the things about Jurassic Park as well that not loads of people know is that about halfway through filming, that the island where it's being filmed, I think it was sort of around Hawaii, actually got annihilated by like a hurricane, and most of the sets were completely destroyed. So again, another reason why it kind of took a long time to shoot the entire film. They had to rebuild quite a lot, and the budget kind of ballooned a bit to $63 million. Didn't really matter considering it made over $1 billion, but even so, it was just one of those
in 93 or 63 was a lot of money.
Oh yeah, definitely.
As well.
But one of the things it did disrupt, God, I can't talk, like Samuel L. Jackson was supposed to come back and shoot Arnold's death scene, but because the hurricane destroyed the set and the scene just had to be completely scrapped, and he sort of regrets doing it because he was supposed to be like physically chased and killed by them and just really wanted to do it. Instead, they do a really nice thing where Laura Dern kind of goes into the power area and his arms on her, and she's like, oh Arnold. It's just like, oh, I got the arm on me, which again was one of the goriest bits I remember when I was a kid. But again, with the hurricane as well, most of the cast and crew were panicking during this actually happening because it's a big hurricane hitting the island, and they all got moved into like this big ballroom of the hotel they were staying in to try and stay safe. The only person that didn't was old Dickie Attenborough, who just stayed in his hotel room and slept through the entire thing.
Wow.
And afterwards, everyone was like, how could you have done that? That was like a crazy hurricane. How did you manage to sleep through it? And he was like, my dear boy, I survived the Blitz. And was just like, oh yeah, of course.
Wow.
There you go. So,
there you go.
Kind
of a bit of wind.
Weirdly ironic, isn't it, that this hurricane has taken out the set.
It's a big part of the film, really. It's like the midway point. And then the final bit of trivia for you. We mentioned, obviously, Jeff Goldblum being a bit of a player, and the fact his character flirts with Ellie, so Laura Dern's as well. Actually, after meeting in this movie, they began a romantic relationship and were engaged for 2 years before breaking up. Apparently, so it says here, Jeff Goldblum is famous for striking up relationships with co-stars.
Really?
Colour me shocked on that piece of information.
I mean, that shot of him in the movie after he's been injured, and it just holds on him for like about 10 seconds, just him with his shirt off, laying on his side. It's just one of the funniest shots in the movie. It's just like only he could get away with that because he's such a unique actor in his delivery of dialogue and, you know, his pacing and everything about him in this movie is what we expect from him as an actor.
I guess that's a good point, because we do get moments which we've not really talked about, moments of comedy in this film, and you know, Goldblum definitely like brings them. Also, Wayne Knight, so he is the comic fool. So he's, you know, as an audience member, you're kind of like laughing at him. What's his name? Nedry. And the famous which has obviously become like a bit of a meme and meme.
Well, that was actually used as a real life virus as well. That would actually happen on people's computer. And there's that brilliant scene as well when he's with the guy when they're trying to be like, he's trying to be almost like a secret agent. He's just like, nobody cares. I think that's become a meme as well. So, but just quickly going back to Jeff Goldblum, obviously, like I said, relationships with co-stars and stuff. After Independence Day, Will Smith actually wrote "Getting Jiggy with It" about Jeff Goldblum. So there you go.
Did he really write it about him?
Absolutely not. So what did, if we're going to go into reviews, what did Karl think about it? Or Carlos?
Yeah, so Karl recommended this for us to watch. And he said, my rating out of 10 would be 10. Industry changing.
Straight to it.
Yeah, no messing about. Industry changing effects, pure entertainment, escapism, and an incredible soundtrack. This film's everything a cinematic experience should be. Jurassic Park blew my mind as a kid, and I still have to watch it when it's on TV. Cheers, James. Love the show. Thank you, Karl, for that. And thank you for recommending this film for us to watch. I enjoyed going back and watching it again. I hadn't seen it in a while, but it felt like an old friend that you go and see down the pub that you never, like, you know, it's like when you see your school friends and you're just like, oh yeah, I remember you. And you just fall back into Jurassic Park. I feel like I'm going into my review here, but
no, it's really interesting. Like, I was thinking about this before. Like, obviously, the film was released in 1993, so that's 30 years ago this year.
Wow.
And I was thinking, when I was a kid growing up, and like in the early 90s, when I was really sort of getting into films, like sort of 10 to 15, that kind of age, a film 30 years ago would have been like a 60s film. So it would have been like the equivalent would have been something like The Great Escape or something like that. Is that how kids look at Jurassic Park now? Is it that sort of, it's just that old action film or that sort of film from years ago? I'd be really interested to hear anyone who's sort of
young,
sort of at least half the age of us or younger, to what their perception is of a film like Jurassic Park. Is it something that's still revered, recognised as like a groundbreaking film? Because even like Jaws was only 15 years before that kind of age. That's like double the amount of time. So just making us all feel
Nigel's having a midlife
I was going to say, and you're
he's realised what time itself is.
Yeah.
My God,
you're pulling us in,
every second.
pulling us
I watched
into
that Johnny Depp film about time.
Oh yeah,
Nick of Time.
Yeah.
So
did you? Oh God.
No.
What?
Go on, Smith. Take us off.
Okay, I'll take us off. Fine. Yeah, like I say, I really enjoyed watching it back. I think, there's probably a little bit of nostalgia for me for this film, and I know we say that quite a lot on the podcast, but this was a film that I've seen quite a few times, like probably late 90s and even into the noughties. Spielberg is probably a massive influence for me, like getting into filmmaking, but even just watching films, and you can see that the heart that Spielberg puts into this film. There is so much entertainment, and for its time, it is like Karl said, it's kind of groundbreaking. I feel like the cinematography and the tension are so good, and I kind of forgot that a little bit about how well they work. And sometimes it's like we've said, it's not even when the dinosaurs are in it. Like looking at my notes, there's not really anything that gives it any criticism, which is so it's like, how do I mark this down? But I'm not going to give it a 10. It's not like a film where I go, wow, it's like blew me away, and I can't really explain why, and I totally get why people do, but it is still one of the best films of the 90s, and a film that we look back on fondly and hopefully will do in another 40 years. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, so it's funny, when I watched this, or when we were going to, knew we were going to do this movie, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, Jurassic Park. Because I don't have that nostalgia for it. As I said, it was a film I didn't see when it first came out. I saw the second one first, God forbid. I saw probably the first Jurassic Park probably in the late 90s, I reckon. So probably, well into, approaching the 2000s. So I was very late to the game. But I still enjoyed the movie, but it didn't, it's funny, this film's never really connected with me, which is really weird. Because as a kid, I didn't just love dinosaurs. I loved dinosaurs. I went to the Natural History Museum.
Made love to dinosaurs.
No, I didn't. I went to the Natural History Museum. I had all these like dinosaur books. I used to draw dinosaurs and colour them and stuff. I had dinosaur colouring books. I was, big into everything else at the time, all the toys and cartoons I grew up with. But yeah, dinosaurs were just so cool. I had like dinosaur action figures I'd buy from like the local toy shop and incorporate them.
Snuggle up with.
Jesus Christ, Nige. Trying to do my review here. And I'd incorporate them into my like He-Man adventures or Transformers adventures. But yeah, I had a real like kind of affinity for dinosaurs. But the thing was, I don't know why this movie, I don't have the nostalgia for it. It didn't really connect with me emotionally, but I understand why this movie is rated so highly and why it has the status that it has, because of it does so many things. It's like, it's a really beautiful movie. It's a game changer of a movie. It's a movie that 100, 200 years from now, people will still be talking about Jurassic Park as one of those movies that defined a decade kind of thing, or changed everything. But I would say, and it's got a great cast, it's a great story, great drama, great tension, cinematography, as you said, Smith, is like off the chart. But for me, it doesn't have that, and I've talked about it before on the podcast, it doesn't have that rewatchability. Dare I say,
don't.
I will happily watch Convoy more times than this in my life. And I have watched Convoy far more times, and it's about how films connect with you, like with you guys and Mrs. Doubtfire and stuff. I would, if this movie wasn't what it was, this is going to sound really weird. I'm kind of rating this slightly outside of my comfort zone in the sense of what it represents more to the world as opposed to just me. That sounds a bit melodramatic, but I think it is just such an important movie. If I was going to say, I'll give this film like a 6 out of 10 or something because it's not something I'm going to go back and watch, I know deep down that's bullshit. Like the rating should appeal to what it should be, a reflection of what I feel for a movie. But I think this movie is so much more than my feeble rating system. So I just have to give it more than I would for a normal movie, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10.
Oh wow, okay, I didn't expect that then.
Yeah, because it's yeah.
I thought you were going to give it like a dinosaur out of a chicken, some new scale that you made up.
My new scale,
like a little Kinder Egg surprise. Nige, where are you?
Yeah, like to follow on from Etok's point, I think Jurassic Park is like the Coca-Cola of movies, really. It's one of those films where like everyone knows about it, almost everyone's seen it. Coca-Cola's like, oh, Coca-Cola, but at the same time it's like, oh, Coca-Cola. Like everyone drinks it for a reason. It's the reason it's been the biggest selling drink for God knows how many years, as Etok flashes a Coca-Cola. We've not been sponsored for this and we really should be. But yeah, and I think like in agreement with the pair of you, like it was a milestone film, absolutely. And I know Spielberg sometimes, like we discussed it a little bit in the other podcast, like he can be criticised a little bit for being a little bit vanilla, but I think anyone who kind of says that about him, just as we said, doesn't really understand his films at all in that sense, because Spielberg is a filmmaker. He's not someone who does commercial tripe and just churns it out. Almost every film he's made has that sort of quality to it. So I think Jurassic Park, as you mentioned, the score is incredible. Like the cast was an unusual cast by some respects, but works really, really well. In terms of criticisms, though, I think the two kids, they are annoying. Like there's no kind of getting away from that. The boy is slightly less annoying, but even so, I know why they did it. You had to kind of do that as part of the audience they were looking for and the way it kind of drives the story on, but it doesn't escape the fact it makes it a little bit annoying. I think the film, maybe about halfway through, loses a little bit of momentum, but it kind of wrestles it back, and I don't think it ever really drops off at all. Yeah, I just really enjoy it. The special effects, I could talk about the music over and over again because how good it is. I'm very glad that Karl suggested this to us so I could go away and watch it, because it is an absolute classic of cinema, and I think it will, and has already, stand the test of time. So for me, I'm going to line up with the boys, give a salute to the dinosaurs, and give it a 9 out of 10.
Nice. Yeah, interesting nines. But yeah, where do you guys sit on Jurassic Park?
Well, it's been an emergency because it's 999.
It is. Call Samuel Jackson. He'll sort it out. He's got a cigarette in his mouth. Email us on offradarpod@gmail.com. Tweet us at offradarpodcast. Listen and view us on YouTube, on Facebook, on all of the social media sites, and let us know what you think of Jurassic Park and give us another film to watch.